I didn't know what this monitoring authority was before I came here, I must confess. And then we've been talking and we've been finding out, and Santi presented it in the first part of, well, actually the day before this workshop started. So I would just like to echo what he's saying about this idea. I mean, has come from the requirements of the UN process for monitoring of climate change and so on, and finding a way that communities themselves can participate and control this process by collecting the data required themselves. I'd just like to reiterate also, again, to reinforce what Santi said. Our people have been living in this region for thousands of years. There's no one who knows how to manage the environment better than us. The traditional knowledge of the peoples of the Pacific is the best thing, is the most effective way of managing the environment of the Pacific. And this is the first principle that everyone needs to come from, and governments and universities and institutions need to recognize this. They need to recognize that they're not the experts. It's the people living in the communities who are the experts. They've known this. They've got thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. So when you talk about climate change, I mean, they've seen climate change. They know what climate change is. They can see how it affects them, all the different ways it affects them. They are already adapting. The communities in the Pacific are already adapting. They're working out, you know, okay, this food doesn't grow here as well anymore. We need to plant it this different way, or plant it at a higher altitude, or stuff like this. This is happening in my country and many other communities around the Pacific. So in terms of this idea of a kit, a backpack with instruments to measure the environmental changes and so on. An important part of the collection of this data will be that when you're collecting the data, you're also collecting cultural knowledge. It's inevitable. When you're talking to some old guy about something, he's going to tell you, you know, we know this because the fish now run this way, and they do this because we know that they go to this particular area of the reef at this particular time, and it correlates with the flowering of this particular plant at this time. And now that's becoming later, so we know that it's all, so all of this stuff is our traditional knowledge that is adapting. And so when you are recording this information, you'll be recording that as well. And it's important when you know that you're recording cultural knowledge, which you're going to be doing in this process, that cultural knowledge has protocols. Those protocols around cultural knowledge need to be respected in this process. And the only way to do that is that the people collecting the data, as Santi is proposing, need to come from the cultural communities themselves. They need to get the consent of the cultural community for doing that. So this whole process has to start with the community sitting down and deciding, yes, we want to take part in this process, and these are the people we are identifying to be the people who take around this kit on our behalf and talk to our elders. And we authorize them to talk to our elders and get the information. Once the information comes in, it goes back to the community to decide, okay, there are two forms of knowledge we have here. There is the strict environmental scientific data that you can separate from the cultural knowledge. And this is the stuff that we can easily upload into databases or a central authority or something at a higher level that can be accessed by the UN. On the other hand, you have the cultural knowledge. And the community has to decide what parts of that cultural knowledge it wants to share with the world and what parts it needs to keep for itself. And if you're going to start talking about keeping cultural knowledge for yourself and for your future, you need to talk about building capacity for communities to manage and store this knowledge. And it's going to be in the forms of, it's going to be in digital forms. It's going to be in video, digital images, audio tracks, digital photographs. So you need to build that capacity in the community. So centers or something where the community can manage this knowledge. Because I was mentioning to Sandy, in the process of collecting this information, you're going to come across an elder who's going to tell you all this stuff and you record it. And then maybe 1 month later, he dies. And all this information hasn't been passed to his children, but it's been passed to this researcher. Why? Because the researcher has asked, and sometimes our kids don't ask, you know. And the way you get knowledge in an indigenous context is you have to ask. It's not just given to you by the elders. They wait to see your interest. And if you're interested, they will tell you. So maybe they didn't pass it on, but you have it, you've recorded it. That information needs to be fed back into the living culture from the audio tapes, from the digital images, back in, so it becomes the wealth that we possess in our communities, the resource we have, the knowledge we have to assist us to adapt and survive and develop in the future. And I'd just like to stress, as this is one of the closing sessions of this workshop, the thing that will help us, that will get us into the future is our traditional knowledge. That's it. If you're looking for an alternative, it has to be based on that. That is what has sustained us for thousands of years, and it will continue to sustain us for another 1,000 years. It is the most important thing we need to build and make sure that our young people are learning. Because if they learn it, we're right. You know, of course, in many contexts, we need to get the land back, the resources back. The land is the most important thing that this knowledge becomes alive through interaction. And so many of us have lost this land. In Vanuatu, we haven't. We're very fortunate. But the knowledge about it is the thing that we need to make sure is passed on. And in this current context of, you know, iPads and mobile phones and stuff, a lot of our young people perhaps are not that interested, but they will be. They will be. They will get to an age when they realize, I want to know this. And so we have to start recording what their elders know, so that when they want to know it and their elder has died and they don't know where to go, they can come back to this centre in the community and get this information according to the protocols that have been set out, saying who can access this information, and it is given to them. So I just wanted to add that as a very important component of what this kit has to have in it. Thank you.